Imagine this. Manchester City, the reigning titan of English football, faces a single game that could define not only their next season, but potentially tilt the entire balance of power in the Premier League. Fans on the edge of their seats, rivals sharpening their knives, money, hundreds of millions, hangs in the balance, and all of it comes down to 90 minutes against Fulham. It sounds unthinkable. After all, for 4 years straight, City has been the team to beat, demolishing records and collecting trophies like souvenirs. But here we are, staring down a cliff edge. Could the mighty actually fall? And what would it mean for the economics of global football, for Europe's elite club competition, and for City's future? Stay with us as we peel back the layers of the most dramatic Champions League qualification race in years, a race that could change not just fortunes, but the trajectory of an entire league. To understand why this game is so seismic, we need to step back and explore how we arrived at this fever pitch. The evolution of the Premier League has always been fueled by a nearly existential drive: reach the Champions League or risk irrelevance. The Champions League isn't merely a tournament. It's a global stage, a financial juggernaut, a lure for the best talent on the planet. When the Premier League was born in 1992, European qualification was a bonus. Top English sides might battle it out for glory, but the true money, prestige, and long-term planning centered around domestic dominance. But as the Champions League evolved, expanding from straight knockout to group stages to Super Club showcase, the incentives grew. Now, the top 4 finishers in the league are granted golden tickets, access to the Champions League, and, critically, to the vast pot of UEFA broadcast and commercial revenues. For Manchester City, Champions League qualification has been a given. Ever since Sheikh Mansour's billions transformed the club from also-rans to superpower, missing out would be considered an unthinkable disaster. But the sands are shifting, both inside and outside the Etihad Stadium. City isn't just defending a trophy cabinet, they're defending a business model predicated on global expansion, commercial partnerships, and relentless growth. That's why, as we approach the season's final match, the significance is magnified. Pep Guardiola, City's master strategist, framed it best: "We have to arrive at the last corner at Fulham and be ready." City travel to Fulham with their fate in their own hands. Sitting in third place with 68 points, they're just 2 points ahead of marauding rivals, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Aston Villa, all eager for their own bite of the Champions League pie. Nottingham Forest lurks, a single point behind, ready to pounce if City slip up. With only goal difference separating dreams from nightmares, a single mistake could derail a season of sweat and sacrifice. The task seems simple: draw, and City are in. But the Premier League has never offered easy days for champions. Fulham, usually underestimated, have made a habit of humbling giants on their home turf. The last handful of clashes between the clubs have been fierce, nail-biters finishing 2-1 or 3-2, where one bad bounce or lapse of concentration swings the narrative. Pep Guardiola knows of this better than anyone. It's a really tough game away. They always have been, the games against Fulham. In the last years, it's always 2-1, 3-2, so tight. But it's not just about the 11 on the pitch. This match is the climax of months of relentless pressure, rotating squads, injuries, and tactical gambles. City will be without Mateo Kovacic, suspended after a red card. John Stones, usually a defensive rock, is sidelined by injury. Rodri, a midfield linchpin, isn't match fit enough to start. Suddenly, for a club built on depth, cracks are showing at the worst possible moment. Why does it matter so much? The answer is simple: money and power. Champions League qualification brings more than glory. According to UEFA's projections, qualifying clubs can expect a revenue windfall that might surpass £100 million, a sum that underwrites transfer budgets, wage increases, stadium expansions, and even global marketing campaigns. It's the financial engine behind every ambitious football project. Jonathan Wilson, football analyst at The Guardian, says it bluntly: Champions League qualification is crucial for maintaining a club's prestige and attracting top talent. Without it, even the richest club on the block starts looking vulnerable. But this year, there's another twist. English clubs face a new, more brutal math. In previous seasons, the Premier League could sleepwalk into 4 Champions League places. Thanks to changes in UEFA's coefficient rankings, a string of European upsets, and fluctuating domestic performances, only 3 English teams are almost certain to make it. More clubs, fewer seats. 5 teams are now fighting for 3 golden tickets. The margins are razor thin. Let's look at the current table. On the eve of the final round, these are the facts. Manchester City, 68 points, third. Newcastle United, Chelsea, Aston Villa, 66 points. Nottingham Forest, 65 points. City's superior goal difference is a lifeline, but if Fulham pulls off a win, City could be leapfrogged by rivals hungry for their piece of the European pie. Opta analyst calculates City's qualification odds at 96.83%. But as fans of Leicester City in 2016 will testify, odds don't play the game, players do. And Fulham, currently within touching distance of their best league finish in a decade, have every incentive to play spoilsport. For them, a win could mean a top-9 finish, added prize money, and a statement to future recruits. Every club has something to play for. The pressure on City is immense. As commentator Jamie Carragher warns, the race for the Champions League spot will go down to the wire. Meanwhile, financial calculations are swirling behind the scenes. Champions League participation, beyond the matchday prestige, is a ticket to a different economic universe. A study by Deloitte finds that clubs missing out often have to slash budgets, rethink transfer targets, and sometimes lose their brightest talents to better-positioned rivals. The knock-on effects can be seen for years. Rob Dawson, writing for ESPN, emphasizes this point. Champions League qualification is a success for Man City this season, despite previous title wins. Imagine that, a club whose very identity has been about domination, reduced to fighting for mere survival amongst Europe's elite. But the implications don't stop at City's doorstep. Their stumbles create opportunity and chaos for others. Newcastle United have emerged as an unexpected force, fueled by new money and strategic investments. Chelsea, despite a turbulent season, still have both the squad and historical clout to crash the top-tier party. Aston Villa, perennial underdogs, sense destiny knocking. And Nottingham Forest, once kings of Europe, are desperate for a return to glory. Further complicating matters are the results from other European competitions. Tottenham Hotspur's shock Europa League win secured them a Champions League spot, while Crystal Palace's FA Cup triumph landed them in the Europa League. Newcastle's Carabao Cup victory means a Conference League berth is off the table for others. Option chains extend in every direction. One unexpected result could tip the scales completely. It's not just a game, it's a domino line of footballing fate. And all this is happening as whispers of regulatory change swirl around the continent. UEFA is rumored to be considering further tweaks to qualification protocols, potentially penalizing clubs under financial investigation, or realigning places based on historical performance. The proliferation of multi-club ownership, with investors snapping up teams across Europe, threatens to create new forms of competitive imbalance. Gab Marcotti of ESPN cautions, the increasing financial disparities could widen the gap in competitiveness in the Premier League. With so many variables and so much at stake, the confidence that once surrounded City is starting to look brittle. Gary Neville, former Manchester United captain and Sky Sports pundit, admits, it is difficult to see past Manchester City for Champions League qualification. But, he adds, you never know in football. The psychological pressure is immense, and it's starting to show. Guardiola himself confessed, it's been a really tough season. The last month's really tough. A manager usually so inscrutable now wears the strain publicly. Every tactical tweak, every substitution, every bit of body language will be scrutinized. And what of the other clubs? For them, City's vulnerability is a scent in the water. Newcastle see a seat at Europe's top table as validation for their new era. Chelsea's deep pockets need Champions League qualification to justify and afford their transfer splurges. Aston Villa's strategy hinges on continental exposure. Even Nottingham Forest, so long in the wilderness, believe history is calling. The stakes are unprecedented. For the first time, up to 10 English clubs could, under specific permutations, qualify for some form of European competition. But as Emlyn Begley of BBC Sport puts it, 5 Premier League teams will battle it out for 3 Champions League places on the final day. What happens if the unthinkable happens? If City falters at Fulham and the dominoes start to fall? The financial consequences are just the beginning. There's the blow to City's appeal for new players, the potential weakening of their global brand, the questions about Guardiola's next step. It could embolden rivals, tilt transfer plans, and even reshape the flow of money and talent across Europe. As the clock ticks down to kickoff at Craven Cottage, every moment, every challenge, every decision becomes infused with existential meaning. For City, it's not just about one more trophy or one more stat, it's about avoiding the nightmare scenario, a world where Manchester City watches the Champions League draw from home and the rest of Europe senses blood in the water. So, As the players walk out under the London sun and the world holds its breath, one question remains. Can Manchester City survive this final test? Or are we about to witness the first fracture in the empire that has reigned for so long? The answer could reshape the future of English and European football. But to truly understand the deep ripple effects if City fails, we have to dig even deeper. What exactly happens behind the scenes, in the boardrooms and on the balance sheets, if this powerhouse misses out? And could the shockwaves ripple far beyond Manchester? That's what we'll unravel next. Now, with all eyes on that decisive clash at Craven Cottage, we step into the heart of the storm. The stakes go far beyond the contents of a single match report. What unfolds on that London pitch will echo through Manchester City's finances, the Premier League's reputation, and English football's competitive future. Imagine City fall short. Not just a stumble, but a collapse at Fulham that leaves them outside the Champions League places for the first time in a decade. The dominoes begin to fall, each one with bigger consequences than many realize. First, the cold, hard numbers. Champions League qualification is the golden ticket. Conservative estimates peg the difference at upwards of £80 million in broadcast prize and matchday revenue. Factor in sponsorship deals that often include Champions League clauses, and the real loss could climb even higher. As an unnamed executive told The Athletic, missing the Champions League is not just a blow, it's a seismic event for your entire business model. Beyond the immediate financial hit is the delicate ecosystem of elite club management. Guardiola's City aren't just a footballing juggernaut on the pitch, but a commercial behemoth off it. Their allure for global sponsors hinges on the glamour and reach of midweek nights under the Champions League lights. Will brands like Etihad or Puma be as eager or as generous if City suddenly find themselves in the Europa League, if at all? City's upward revenue trajectory could face its first major stall in years. The playing squad, too, is built for Europe's biggest stage. Star players like Erling Haaland want to test themselves against the best, not the merely very good. The specter of missing out on the Champions League could start whispers in dressing rooms and agents' offices. Rival clubs circling with offers, Barcelona, Real Madrid, the usual suspects, sense weakness. Jonathan Wilson put it plainly, Champions League football remains the ultimate draw for the world's top talent. Nor does the disruption end there. City's carefully calculated wage bill, one of the highest in world football, is affordable in part because UEFA money comes in like clockwork. Without it, tough choices loom. Do they trim the squad? Accept lower bids for fringe players? Delay new signings? The careful financial engineering that has underpinned City's ascent would require urgent recalibration. But perhaps most significantly, City's status as the Premier League's standard-bearer would be shaken. Rival clubs, even those not directly benefiting from City's misstep, sense a power vacuum. Newcastle United, brimming with Saudi investment, have made no secret of their ambitions. Chelsea, with a resurgent youth core and new ownership, are itching to remind everyone of their place among Europe's elite. A City slip opens the door wider than ever before in the post-Abramovich era. And this is where the tentacles of fate spread even wider, because the Premier League itself is watching nervously. City's dominance has been both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, their excellence, both artistic and ruthless, has set a benchmark, elevating the league's prestige worldwide. On the other, their stranglehold has fueled debates about competitive balance, financial fair play, and the league's ability to remain unpredictable. If City falter, it isn't just a matter of new names ascending. Arsenal, Newcastle, maybe even Aston Villa or Chelsea could step into the breach. The old order would shake, and with it, the league's global narrative might reset. As Gab Marcotti warns, widening financial disparities could see the league split between haves and have-nots. A new, less predictable cycle could begin, one where clubs previously relegated to hopeful outsiders now see a genuine path to the summit. Now let's widen the lens. The UEFA landscape itself is shifting. Regulatory changes, rumored to be on the horizon, could alter how many teams from England qualify and on what terms. This season's intense scramble for the top five, fueled by coefficient points and performance, might soon become the norm. If City, the club that pushed the Premier League's global brand to new heights, are suddenly on the outside looking in, what message does that send about the volatility now embedded in the system? And then, the wild cards. What if Chelsea, currently out of the Champions League places, win the Conference League? What if Newcastle clinch the FA Cup next year, further complicating European places? Multi-club ownership models, like those at City and Newcastle, could start to change not just who qualifies, but how the whole structure of English and European football is built. For the fans, the implications are no less profound. For over a decade, City supporters have grown accustomed to dreaming of Champions League glory each spring. A season without would feel like a gaping hole, not just in prestige, but in the rhythm of the footballing year. Would attendance hold up for Europa League matches? Would the famed City support travel in their usual numbers to less glamorous continental destinations? The emotional cost, while harder to quantify, could be substantial. Let's not forget the ripple effect on the transfer market. European qualification is a make-or-break factor for players considering offers. As Jamie Carragher observed, clubs need the Champions League. Without it, recruitment becomes a much tougher sell. City's carefully identified targets might have to be revised, their negotiating power diminished. Meanwhile, media rights negotiations, already growing exponentially, are fueled by the league's ability to offer the world's very best, every season. If City aren't there, would that devalue the product, even slightly? Premier League officials know that every change at the top sends tremors through boardrooms from Beijing to Boston. Yet, as with every crisis, there is opportunity. For other clubs, City's troubles could mark the start of a rare open window. Arsenal's young core, Newcastle's ruthlessly efficient project, and Chelsea's deep pockets are all factors. But perhaps most exciting, a league in which a handful of clubs, not just one, can realistically dream of the ultimate prize. So, what can viewers and fans actually take from this drama, besides a sense of anxiety or anticipation? First, understand the astonishing fragility of modern football dominance. Today's untouchables are tomorrow's desperate scramblers. As fans and analysts, keeping a close eye on the underlying economics is as crucial as following the tactics or lineups. If you're an aspiring manager, administrator, or even a grassroots supporter, City's scenario offers a lesson in risk management. No matter how secure your position feels, the game can change, fast. Depth in your squad, resilience in your finances, adaptability in your strategy. These are the new commandments for clubs hoping to thrive. For young players, it's a stark reminder of the importance of adaptability. City has built a squad of extraordinary depth, but injuries and suspensions, like Mateo Kovacic's red card or John Stones' knee troubles, have shown that even the most resource-rich teams can be brought to their knees by a few unlucky breaks. If you're a neutral or a rival fan, the impending shakeup should be thrilling. The Premier League earned its reputation on unpredictability and drama. A rebalancing of power, ignited by City's stumble, could refresh storylines, create new rivalries, and perhaps make the race for the top four more dramatic than ever before. For investors and sponsors, City's case is a masterclass in the strategic importance of European competition. Brands want visibility and association with success on the biggest stage. Clubs that secure Champions League football consistently are far more attractive propositions, not only for established giants, but for up-and-comers looking to break in. And finally, for those fascinated by the business side of football, watch how the regulations evolve. UEFA's rumored new rules could make seasons like this one commonplace, with more teams in contention and no guarantees for even the biggest names. Multi-club ownership, evolving media deals, and shifting fan demographics will all play a part in shaping the next era. So, how does it all end for Manchester City and the Premier League this season? Let's return to the key question. What are the deep financial, strategic, and reputational consequences if City fail to secure Champions League qualification at Fulham? Financially, the hit would be immediate and sharp. Tens of millions lost, a stalling of their growth curve, and possible rethinking of the wage bill and recruitment. Strategically, City would face an existential moment: how to maintain momentum, keep stars, and reassert their dominance amid a quickly changing landscape. Reputationally, the sheen of invincibility would crack. Rival clubs and fans would sense blood in the water, and the entire Premier League narrative might begin to shift toward genuine unpredictability. The era of City's unchallenged supremacy could be closing, or at least entering a more fragile stage. But of course, football's beauty is its unpredictability. City's odds of making the Champions League remain excellent. Opta Analyst puts it at 96.83%. Guardiola's men have made a habit of showing up when it matters most. Yet, as Pep himself put it, we have to arrive at the last corner at Fulham and be ready. Nothing is guaranteed. And here's the secret fact. Behind closed doors, Premier League executives have quietly welcomed this moment of uncertainty. A more open race, more clubs with hope, means more global eyeballs, more drama, and ultimately, a stronger league. The league's true asset isn't its biggest club's dominance, it's its capacity for reinvention in the face of adversity. So as City and the rest take the field, remember, we're not just watching 90 minutes of football. We're witnessing the high-wire act that keeps the world's most exciting league at the center of the sporting universe. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep dives into football's biggest stories, and let us know in the comments, who do you think will benefit most if City slip up at Fulham? And would a